From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Jay Zamanal, and these are your news headlines for 12 o'clock. A former member of the Vancouver Canucks coaching staff has launched a complaint with the BC Human Rights Tribunal alleging she was fired because of her sex, mental illness, and physical disability. Rachel Dory, a former video analyst and assistant video coach for the team, posted a copy of the complaint to Twitter on Sunday, saying she has been mentally and emotionally destroyed and is done hiding. The team's assistant general manager, Emily Castanguay, said in a statement that the allegations are absolutely not true and that Dory was never treated differently due to gender, mental disability, or physical condition. Canucks Sports and Entertainment also issued a statement saying it disagrees with the allegations, which have not been tested in court. Meanwhile, BC's Human Rights Commissioner is calling for the end of school liaison officer programs that put police in schools, just as Vancouver's school board prepares to vote on a motion to bring them back. Kasari Govender recommends that the programs be ended by all school districts unless they can demonstrate an evidence-based need for them that cannot be met some other way. She says Indigenous, Black, and other marginalized students, as well as their parents and communities, have raised significant concerns about the harm caused by having police in schools. The Vancouver School Board is set to vote on a motion that would reinstate a revised and reimagined version of the program in public schools after it was ended last year. In other news, Muslims in the Lower Mainland are hoping to see more halal foods available at local food banks. Maham Hashmi has more on the story.
With the rising food costs from inflation, the BC Muslim Food Bank is seeing an increase of customers. The BC Muslim Association Food Bank's Director of Operations, Azim Mohammed, has seen an increase of Muslims from different areas coming to use their Surrey Food Bank. The reason being that they don't have access to halal options at their local banks.
I do ask them, you from Vancouver or other places, they have food bank everywhere. And that's one of the reason. That's one of the reason they tell me. Reason we don't go there because they are not halal.
Mohammed hopes to see more halal options made available at more food banks in the Lower Mainland. Maham Hashmi, 1680 The Crow.
Our reporter Maham Hashmi joins us now. Maham, does the Muslim Food Bank accept donations?
Hi Jay, no, they don't accept donations. They are given a list of items from the community and they will go out and get them and make sure they are all halal.
Okay, and is there other locations for the Muslim Food Bank?
No, Surrey is the only location for the bank, which is why people all over the Lower Mainland make the commute out to the bank.
Okay, thank you so much, Maham. Now, Environment and Climate Change Canada is warning those in southwestern BC, including Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley, that blustery winter weather is coming their way. Officials predict that strong winds, sub-zero temperatures, and cold wind chill are coming Tuesday and Wednesday. That's expected to lead to a significant amount of snow, transitioning to rain, leading to poor travel conditions. There's also a slight risk of freezing rain for parts of the Fraser Valley. In other news, a public inquest into the death of Trayvon Desjardins started this morning at 9:30 at the Burnaby Coroner's Court. Desjardins was 17 years old when his mother found him dead in the closet of a group home. He was missing 4 days prior to his body being discovered. The teen's death sparked public outcry from family as well as members from the Indigenous community who were requesting answers as to why it took 4 days to find him. His mother is suing multiple government agencies. Now to Surrey, the future of policing in Surrey is up for debate again, with a report requested by the province due to be presented at today's council meeting. The report outlines the process for transitioning away from a fledgling municipal police force and keeping the RCMP in the city. This comes after the new council voted 2 weeks ago to stop the transition that had been championed by the previous mayor. The report says City RCMP would have to hire more than 160 additional officers, but those within the Surrey Police Service Union are committed to staying with the municipal force. Ontario residents have been visiting food banks in greater numbers and more often for 6 years running. Feed Ontario, a collective of hunger relief organizations, says the troubling trend appears to have escalated during the most recent year on record. John Kennedy from the Canadian Press reports.
The annual hunger report, subtitled The Deepening Cracks in Ontario's Economic Foundation, found 587,000 adults and children visited the province's food banks a total of 4.3 million times between April 1st, 2021 and March 31st, 2022. Feed Ontario said that represents a 15% spike in the number of people turning to food banks for aid and a 42% surge in the number of visits compared to the numbers recorded in 2019. John Kennedy, The Canadian Press.
A former employee of Quebec's power utility charged with spying on behalf of China has been granted bail while he awaits trial. Yu Sheng Wang, 35, is the first person to be charged with economic espionage under Canada's Security of Information Act. Wang also faces 3 charges under the Criminal Code for fraudulent use of a computer and fraudulently obtaining a trade secret and breach of trust. Yunfeng Zheng, Wang's girlfriend, says he will now fight to clear his name and regain his repatriation.
I don't know how and it happens, but I trust him didn't do those things. And he will stay here to approve those things. He didn't do those things.
Wang's case will return to court in mid-December. And barely a month after granting himself a third 5-year term as China's leader, Xi Jinping is facing a wave of public anger over his zero-COVID policy. Demonstrators poured into the streets over the weekend in cities including Shanghai and Beijing in protests unprecedented since the 1989 student-led pro-democracy movement centered on Beijing's Tiananmen Square. Most protesters focused their anger on restrictions that confine families to their homes for months and have been criticized as neither scientific or effective. But some also shouted for Xi and the Communist Party that has ruled China for 73 years to give up power. Now to the U.S., the white gunman who massacred 10 black shoppers and workers at a Buffalo supermarket pleaded guilty today to murder and hate-motivated terrorism charges. 19-year-old Peyton Gendron used a legally purchased semi-automatic rifle to gun down victims at the Tops Friendly Market back in May. Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown told WKBW that Peyton Gendron's guilt was never in question.
The penalty for this horrific crime is for this individual never, ever to see the light of day again.
Relatives of the victims have since called on Congress to address white supremacy and gun violence through legislation. Now to the World Cup, Brazil overcame the absence of Neymar to beat Switzerland 1-0 and advanced to the round of the 16 of the World Cup. Casemiro scored in the 83rd minute with a shot from inside the area to put Brazil in the last 16 with a match to spare in Group G. Serbia and Cameroon drew 3-3 earlier in the day and have 1 point each. In the game following, Ghana defeated South Korea 3-2. And as Qatar welcomes more than 1 million fans for the month-long World Cup, even its camels are working overtime. An influx of visitors the tiny Emirates has never before seen is rushing to check off a bucket list of quintessential Gulf tourist experiences, which is to ride on a camel's back, take a photograph with a falcon, and wander through the cobbled alleys of old markets. On a recent Friday afternoon, hundreds of visitors in soccer uniforms or draped in flags waited for their turn to mount the humpbacked animals. Now back to Canada, checking in with the Canucks. They continued their hot streak last night, defeating the San Jose Sharks 4-3 in overtime. Canucks now head home and look to keep their momentum going in their 7 p.m. matchup tomorrow night against Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals. Now, looking ahead in the NHL, the Toronto Maple Leafs are in Detroit tonight for an Atlantic Division matchup against the Red Wings. Puck drops at 4 p.m. Pacific. The Oilers joined the Leafs as the only Canadian teams in action tonight. Edmonton will be hosting the Florida Panthers at 6:30 p.m., where Connor McDavid will look to catch Canucks captain Bo Horvat for second in the NHL goal-scoring race. NHL goal leaders Jason Robertson is also in action tonight with the Dallas Stars in St. Louis to face against the Blues. Other games tonight include Canucks division rival Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets at 4 p.m. Today in Metro Vancouver, it will be mainly sunny, winds of up to 30 kilometers per hour over southern sections this afternoon, high of +3. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies, low of -4, wind chill -9 overnight. That was your news updates at 12 o'clock. I'm Jay Zabanal.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Extremely important for people to stay healthy and to stay active as much as possible.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Well, I guess we'll get right into it. We are doing a companion call here today. I'm Evan Smith, your host. I'm here with Paul Langford, who is a coach for the women's basketball team at Riverside Secondary. And I'm here with Lisa. Gonna just make sure I pronounce this name perfectly. Sulatitsky, which is the head of recreation services here at BC and a former, or BCIT, pardon me, and a former volleyball coach. So today what we're going to be looking at is just the women's participation in sports and how that relates somewhat to coaching. So I guess I'll just throw a couple questions your guys' way to start here, and we'll get more into a conversation after that. So the first question I'm going to ask you guys is there a different way to approach coaching females in sport than men? Do each of you have experience that you can speak on for that?
I can go first. I coached boys for 9 years before I had ever coached girls. I grew up with lots of brothers and one sister, so I lived in a guy world, and so my first experience with coaching females was in Mission in 1985, and I went and asked a lot of people what I should do, and I got some great advice, and I shared this story probably 1,000 times, but one person said to me, "Be careful what you say, because if you tell girls to do it, they'll do it." So. And it was great advice, because I've been coaching girls since '85, and it's a big difference between coaching young females and young boys.
Right. And then Lisa, in your experience, have you coached females, males, primarily one, bit of both?
Primarily females. I really haven't had the opportunity to coach males.
Okay. And what leadership traits do you think are important in coaching females specifically?
Ooh, good question. I think it's just really understanding the mental part of the game for females, kind of thing, on it, and how they take things, like, I think, forward on it thing, and they like that you check in with them all the time, kind of thing, and they really want to see what's going on and understand what's going on, kind of thing. So you can't leave them alone or let them be isolated on things.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of just speaking on coaching females then, I was reading a report today, the Rally report, and this study shows that Canadian girls aged 6 to 18 have a dropout rate of about 1 in 3, as opposed to males in that same age group, which is 1 in 10. So I was just wondering, could one of you speak on that and how this may correlate to less females being in coaching roles further down the line?
Well, it's definitely going to affect, you're always looking get female role models, and coaching is really hard. For one, I coach basketball, so that's a real skill sport. So when you've got a skill sport, it's really hard to coach. So finding female coaches and getting females to play, and then that trickling into them coaching in one day is certainly a chain that you want to do. But I think it's it's COVID's changed a lot of different things, and we've opened up and seen, and the participation with everybody is really down, but it really hurt females. You talked about coaching guys and coaching girls. Coaching girls you have to build up, I believe, and coaching boys you have to knock down, because the confidence of girls and around their peers and all that, they're very self-conscious, and you continually have to give them confidence and build them up. That's what I find. But
I would agree with you on that too, for sure, Paul. That confidence and that level of confidence, and if you check in with them or don't check in them, like by saying one thing to them, they could lead it one way or the other way, for sure, on it.
Absolutely. So then, do you guys think that an absence of girls/women in sports leads to less women taking on leadership roles, not just in sport, but maybe beyond that? I understand that might be a broad question, but if one of you could tackle that in some sense.
I mean, it definitely is a broad question. I haven't been in the coaching world for a while, but I know when we were in the coaching world, to come around the age 16 is when we saw the big dropout for volleyball individuals, and I think it was more individuals when they really wanted to pursue that sport at a higher level. That's when they would continue playing in the sport, and when they were just they've had enough with, they would stopped around that age group kind of thing, and you saw that a lot in volleyball, just with the club participation and the individuals that played. And for sure it impacted those individuals that stopped playing, whether they wanted to coach or not, kind of thing on it. So
yeah, kind of just expanding on that. I know my sister actually used to play volleyball and dropped out at a similar rate, and me and my mom had went to see some of her games, and she was good. She was. But when reading into what like some people perceive as barriers for keeping women engaged in sports, one of those is the self-perceived lack of skill. Have you noticed that when coaching women, or in even your own sporting experience yourself?
I mean, I think everybody has a different image. Like I said, I haven't been in the coaching world for a long time, so I know like I'm talking more pre-COVID thing than post-COVID thing on it. I would say that individuals, they wanted to feel like they have to have a certain level, and I know with coaches in BC, they wanted a certain level in order to go to the post-secondary level and everything. And I think a lot of that age group too was about whether they would play on would be a little bit of camaraderie with their teammates, and if they felt they wanted to play. Like some of them just played because they really enjoyed playing with their team and their teammates, knowing that they probably wouldn't go into post-secondary. And then some of them specifically played because they were going into post-secondary. And then I think there's just a lot of other dynamics that come into play. And I think Paul had too with coaching, it's not just the physical X's and O's of coaching on things. There's a lot of mental components and team building and dynamics that come into play. And when you're coaching, I always say it's a 24-hour role, because you don't, as a coach, you just don't leave the game and then it's over with kind of thing. You're always thinking and strategizing about what you can do as a team to either build your team up, or to what direction do you need to go on, and then what are the issues that are on your team in order to get that team to be together and work together as a group.
Right. And then just, you spoke briefly on the mental component of sports. Could you both just give your insight into what you think, like what type of empowerment does sports give people, like self-confidence and all that stuff that you take away going forward from playing team sports?
That's why we play sports, is to have fun, and I love coaching young females to give them the power and show them that the empowerment that sports can give them. Coaching's really changed though, and we've got social media and you've got a bunch of different things, so everything is magnified, and you have to make sure that the kids are having fun. If they're not having fun, there's a million other things to do now, and there's only everything's smaller in the fact that there's less places to play, and it's really tough out there. So this is a great topic. You could go forever on it. But basically you just have to keep it fun, and then you've got to teach all the different things of why you're playing sport and how sport is like life and life is like sport. And if you can pull that off, you're doing a great job. If if you lose them, it's really hard to get them back.
Yeah. I think just like the skill sets of taking responsibility of things, to be there for your teammates, just like it's like going to a job. Like you have to be there and to work towards a common goal kind of thing on it. I think a communication piece is really important too, of how do you interact with individuals, because you might not like everybody on your team, but you still have to work together towards a common goal and things.
Mm-hmm. And actually, just kind of speaking on like how to keep people engaged with sports, you kind of spoke on the fun component that's supposed to come with sports, right? When I was playing competitive sports myself, like throughout high school, I took a brief 2-year hiatus because I did not agree with the way my coach coached me. Mm-hmm. And we actually, the parents of this team ended up signing a petition later to get him kicked off the team, and that was the reason I went back. So how do you, as a coach, keep someone engaged and kind of toe that line between maybe being too tough and just being critical because you want them to perform at their best?
It's called building a culture. Like, I've been at Riverside for over 20 years, and you try and build a culture, and you try and show them that if you get through this program and if you enjoy it and you learn by it, there's some benefits. We practice at 6 a.m. So I get parents that'll tell me that their daughters will not get up at that time. She's not going to do it. And then, 5 years later after she graduates, she tells me that she's in the gym every morning at 5, and it's awesome. And those are the stories I like to hear. I like to hear that they like physical fitness, they like staying in shape, they like being part of the community. Those are the wins. So you build a culture that is great for them to be involved in, and be part of a team and be part of a community. And that's the catch that I look for as a coach, and that's what I'm trying to build.
Absolutely. And then another question I had just in my brain earlier, was do you think that male success in sports overshadows female success? Like at the high school level, at the collegiate level, at even higher levels than that, do you think that plays into it at all, and maybe even like female participation within the sport?
I think it depends where you're at a little bit on things. I mean, like at the women's soccer program, for Canada, Team Canada, they've had way more success than the men's, but it will be interesting to see what happens with the men's program and where they're developing. And I think sometimes sometimes they can breed off each other and build off each other kind of thing on it. When they have one program is more successful than the other program, you can kind of, that helps supports, because it shows that you can have success. And if it's a male program or a female program, that means there's things in place there in order for them to have success. So I do think a little bit is in the environment that is created to support those programs and the team.
Right. And do you think there are like certain programs that could be like put in place maybe to just like increase leadership to help develop those traits?
What do you mean by what programs?
Well, when I was reading a report today, and it came from, I think it was a company called Viasport, and they actually brought up developing a gender equity in sport and physical activity policy, and this is something that would be implemented throughout BC. And the intent of this objective is to develop a sports sector for British Columbia that is committed to upholding a balanced representation of gender in sport. And then one of those was also one of the programs they had within there was specifically focused on leadership. And I was actually a little confused about what that would entail. So I was just wondering if either of you had an idea of how these programs could help someone develop those leadership skills, or if that's something that might not be achievable and it might be just a trait that's developed over time, or something that's inherently there within yourself.
We work really hard on trying to get the girls program to be identical to the guys program. BC School Sports offer the same female. I mean, there's not football, but they've got other sports that girls play that guys don't play. I think things are pretty equal, and the whole landscape is changing. Before there wasn't a WNBA, now there's a WNBA. Do they draw as many people as? No, they don't. And but there's female role models now that there never have been. Serena Williams is far more well known than Martina Navratilova was, or Billie Jean King. But I mean, Billie Jean King probably changed that a lot. So I think the game's changing, and now in the States, that you had Title IX, which you had to give out the same amount of scholarships, and those things that helped, I think, a lot. But now you have a thing called NIL, like name, image, and likeness, and that's going to be a whole new world. Because we watched a UCLA practice a week ago, and there was a girl standing there in the practice, and she had a $1 million contract. So that didn't happen before. So and there's lots of reasons why she wasn't the best player on the team. I want to share that as well. There's some advantages in that. I don't think you can make people watch female sports, but I think social media has helped it, and I think there's lots of different things. The Canadian soccer team's female soccer team is a good example of it, and I think things are pretty positive in those types of venues. Male athletes are still going to get, if they're going to sign the pro contracts, they're still going to be more attractive.
Right. And I guess one more question that's maybe a little bit off topic is just, what do you guys look for in players? What makes a good player? Is it dedication? Is it skill? Is it a combination of both? And if they're lacking maybe one of those departments, in your guys' experience, how do you develop that?
If it goes to me, the number one thing you want is toughness, and it's mental toughness. You want them. This is a crazy world now, and there's a lot of distractions, and you want athletes that have mental toughness. And if you've got kids that can catch and throw and run and jump, that's all great. But your number one thing is you want somebody who's got toughness, and if it's physical toughness, that's great, and if it's mental toughness, it's better.
Yeah, I would agree with that too, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like they obviously, if you're at a certain the level that you're at, they have to have a skill level in order to play that level. But then what distinguishes them too is just their ability to fight through things and battle through things. And you can see that when they play the sport and what they do when they're in that critical moment or tough moment of the game. Like that's what I look. Not that they've had success in it, but did they battle out of it, right, on it?
Right. And are there ways to develop that, or do you think if someone doesn't have that, it's closed and shut?
I think they can. I think they have to have a little bit of it before you start, but you certainly can build it. You can build it in just making decisions, giving them ownership, letting them watch other people. But yeah, I think you can build on it. It's hard to get somebody who doesn't have any of it, but you certainly can make it grow.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's part of like coaching, right? Empowering the athletes to have that.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you. I don't want to keep you too much longer. So again, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And for everyone listening, you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
first started playing music with Charlie, specifically punk music. Love punk rock. And then one day we were like, oh, let's go see the Pixies, because they're coming to Vancouver. They're playing with Weezer, another 90s alternative band. Afterwards, Charlie came up to me and was like, dude, like, we should start a band. Like, we should actually try and do music. That'd be so cool. Like, let's do it.
All right. All right, this one's called Slap a Bye Baby. He said, babe, I want to be in that ass like a parasite. How do you think my touch is what heaven's like? How do you know like they scream when I go for the throat? How do you know what it's like to watch blood pour on my nose?
And so we go through that first quarantine, and it was a search for a drummer, because it was me and Zach on guitar. I was doing most of the singing, Charlie was on bass.
I was learning guitar and Lars was learning all kinds of instruments, so we just kind of messed around. And then it kind of got stale after a while because we couldn't really work off each other in that particular arrangement.
And we were just like desperate for someone who would be able to play drums, and then we'd be good to go, right? And so probably the most musical person in our grade at the time was a certain man named Knight O'Connor, who played guitar, played bass, and played the drums.
So, I mean, I knew everybody from high school. I knew Lars, Zach, and Charlie. And I knew that they were playing music together. And I knew that there was a party coming up that Charlie was throwing. So I went to that. And I managed to corner Lars and Charlie. And I was like, hey, you know, I know how to play drums. And I heard that you guys are down a drummer. I can play drums for you if you'd like that.
We started going, and Knight is a pretty rough drummer, and it was fun, but we were like, okay, this is a good place for this band to start. Like, this will work, we just gotta give it time and learn stuff. And we were like, all right, like, let's take a little break, right?
And then we figured it out, because Knight's a way better bassist than he is a drummer. Lars is a way better drummer than he is guitarist. I moved to keyboard because I'm much better at that than bass. And Zach stayed on guitar because he's so good.
And then we like played the best I'd ever played up at that point in any group setting ever. Played some of the most fun music, rough and raw, but exciting and new and fun. And we knew we would never go back to the old instruments. From that point on, we were like stuck in those spots. But I'd say our biggest influence was coming from Pink Floyd. 'Cause we adored Pink Floyd as the typical high school stoners we were. We loved Pink Floyd, and we'd sit there and listen to Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall and dedicate hours to it and stuff. You know, way more important than schoolwork at the time. You know, you gotta get your listens in on some Pink Floyd records, you know. But as to who I would compare us to and who we sound like the most, well, we get a lot of people who say we sound like The Doors.
I've heard from a lot of people that we apparently sound like The Doors in terms of our musical arrangement.
Which is funny because I'm not even that big of a Doors fan. But Charlie's a massive Doors fan, and once again, that's where the Doors got their sound, was through those keys and stuff.
I don't think a lot of people have an answer for Knight's singing. He kind of just sings like Knight, he just shouts. I like it.
As far as genre goes, Lars and I came up with psychedelic funk and punk.
So a lot of bands, whether or not they're a one-hit wonder or whatever, a lot of bands have that song, like the song, their song. It's a song that people say, oh yeah, they sing blank. For Queen, it's probably Bohemian Rhapsody. For Led Zeppelin, you have to say it's Stairway to Heaven. Like Nirvana's It Smells Like Teen Spirit. So if I asked you, what's your song? What's the song for Big Long Baby?
Bugs.
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 But who gives a shit about insects?
I wrote Bugs about drug use and how it kind of affected me and how, there's that blasé attitude. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Roaches in my lung, roaches in my heart, kickstart. But it's about drugs, and it's got that kind of like evil feeling to it, about how it's super fast paced, and then it's, you're getting hit with it.
Give a shit about insects? Think you can't do what? We don't take care of Terraria. Give a shit about insects? Think you can't do what?
That was the easiest song we've ever written too. And I think we finished that song in like three band practices. We actually like completed that song with the words, with everything. Yeah, it was by far the easiest song we've ever written. And the most excited I think we've ever been writing a song. It was very fun to write that one, because we were like, fuck, this is cool.
So I remember playing it, and I just sat there for, must have been like half an hour just trying to work it out. And then I got like the verse chorus down, and then I wrote this like slow, heavy part. And I was like, this is great. So I recorded it and I sent it to the band, and they're like, that's fucking awesome. Yeah, I just really channeled how I was feeling into the words and made a singable melody that still kind of felt punky and had that attitude. And then I brought the words into practice, and then we played it together, and it was done. That was, I think, probably one of the first songs that we sat back and were really proud of.
But yeah, Bugs was like, that was our first and only, thus far, masterpiece that we've made.
if I leave them on, I've ruined the streak of the last like 10 years of never wearing shoes before.
I do all kinds of tattoos, whatever the customer asks for mostly. But lately I've been doing mostly like form line style indigenous tattoos. I'm Métis on my dad's side, but I was raised by my mom. So I didn't grow up with a huge personal connection to my indigenous ancestry. But as I started doing more indigenous tattoos, that kind of like got me a little bit more interested in finding more about my own history.
Bahasa Hari Tundo, Tatemusli, Sastrosli, Nadlewiten Yinka Dene Dakels. In my language, that means my name is Randall Bear Barnetson. I come from the Bear clan, the village of Nadle, and of the Dakels First Nation. That's my nation. The back tattoo, I think it's been about 12 hours now, I would say. 10 to 12 hours. On my left arm here, I have the bear for Dentemu, my Bear clan. And then I have the Thunderbirds on the middle, and then the double eagles on the bottom. So this is for my Dakelth people on my mother's side, and then also the double eagles for my Newhawk family, and then the Thunderbirds for my father's side. His crest was a Thunderbird. So that's why I have the Thunderbird on my back as well, along with the bear. Since time immemorial, we would commission an artist to do a clan design or a crest for us in our community. We'd go to a local artist and ask them to do a design for our clan or community to represent ourselves, our family, our community, and our nation.
Adi, Ani, Sasan, welcome to my studio.
So my tattoos, they all represent that, from my Bear clan to my Thunderbirds to my Eagle clan. They represent and they place me in my community and show my affiliation there. And so that's why I love working with Logan, because Logan, he helps me to kind of embody these teachings in these clans and crests, and he really contextualizes these teachings that we have. And then on this side, I got the East Van cross, because where I was born, East Van. So I kind of go between two, because traditionally, land and people are the most important things to us as traditional indigenous people. So when I turned 18, I was like, I'm going to get the East Van cross on my arm. I'm going to go to do it. I went to a tattoo artist, and he said, nah, come back in a couple of years when you figure it out a bit more. And I was like, what the hell, man? Like, I want to get tattooed. And he was like, nah, think about it some more, come back. And then I waited a decade, and Logan did it for me.
My name is Shanton Hopkins. I am a tattoo artist here at East Van Warren Tattoo Company. Born and raised in East Vancouver. I am indigenous to Darcy Anderson Lake, better known to us as the Naquaqua people. It's part of the Stallion Nation. So growing up, I was a pretty rebellious kid. Just always getting into trouble, getting into fights, drinking, stealing cars when I was like 12. Went to jail when I was like 14. It's just a lot of pain and trauma from like my mother. She was an alcoholic who dealt with her generational trauma from my grandmother, who was in residential school. So just like trickled down, passed down to me, right? But like me and myself, I've been doing
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon and welcome to 1680 The Crow. My name is Evan Tate and this is your sports update to 1 o'clock. Checking in with what's happening in Qatar, the World Cup games have just wrapped up for today, with Portugal winning the late game 2-0, with Bruno Fernandes scoring the first goal of the match. Cameroon and Serbia drew in the early match tonight, both netting 3 goals in the high-scoring contest. In the game following, Ghana defeated South Korea 3-2, with Ghanaian midfielder Mohamed Kudus scoring 2 goals in the win. Brazil also took the win against Switzerland in their matchup today, with Brazilian superstar Camarillo scoring the only tally. Brazil now joins France and Portugal as the only teams in the tournament with a 2-0 record. Canada has been eliminated from the competition following the team's 4-1 loss to Croatia Sunday. However, the team still must compete against Morocco on the 1st of December. Canadian star Alphonso Davies scored the first ever World Cup goal for the Canadian national team in the loss. Canadian defender Alistair Johnson speaks on the significance of the goal.
I think everyone knew in the group that if you scored that first goal, you were going to kind of go down in Canadian folklore. So there was always a little bit on that. It was fitting that it had to be Fonzie.
Checking in with the Canucks, they continued their hot streak last night, defeating the San Jose Sharks 4-3 in overtime. Russian Andrei Kuzmenko potted his 10th goal of the season with the overtime game winner, which completed the Canucks road trip with a perfect 3-0 record. The Canucks defeated reigning Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche over that stretch, as well as the Vegas Golden Knights, who currently sit atop the Western Division. JT Miller picked up 2 assists in the game Sunday to extend his point streak to 8 games. Canucks now head home and look to keep their momentum going in their 7 p.m. matchup tomorrow night against Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals. Head coach Bruce Boudreau addresses the work still ahead of them before the homestand.
We're not 500 yet. I think we're playing better. I think we're playing more consistent and more as a group. But I think there's a lot of steps we can take to become a better team yet. And we've done a lot of it with a lot of road games. And so hopefully we can take advantage of some home cooking for a little while, and then we'll see where we're at.
Looking ahead in the NHL, the Toronto Maple Leafs are in Detroit tonight for an Atlantic Division matchup against the Red Wings. Detroit currently sits just 1 spot back of the Leafs at 3rd place in the Atlantic Division. Puck drop for that game is at 4 p.m. Pacific. The Oilers join the Leafs as the only Canadian teams in action tonight. Edmonton will be hosting Matthew Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers at 6:30 p.m., where Connor McDavid will look to catch Canucks captain Bo Horvat for 2nd in the NHL goal-scoring race. The NHL goals leader, Jason Robertson, is also in action tonight, with the Dallas Stars in St. Louis to face off against the Blues. Dallas has had a quality start to the season as they currently sit atop their respective division and 3rd in the Western Conference. Other games tonight include Canucks divisional rival Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets at 4 p.m. Also, the New Jersey Devils will look to keep their hot start alive as they take on the Rangers at Madison Square Garden. The Devils have won 18 of their last 20 games, including a 13-game win streak over that stretch. Jack Hughes currently leads the team in goals and is joined with Jesper Bratt for the lead in points. In Canadian basketball news, the CEBL announced Monday morning that reigning CEBL champion Hamilton Honey Badgers will be relocating to Brampton ahead of the 2023 season. The relocation comes as Hamilton's usual home arena, the First Ontario Centre, announced their future closure during the 2024 and 2025 seasons due to renovations. The team will continue to be known as the Honey Badgers while playing in Brampton and will become the 2nd team based in the Greater Toronto Area, joining the OVO-owned Scarborough Shooting Stars. The Honey Badgers become the 3rd CEBL team to see a rebrand this offseason, joining the former Guelph Nighthawks, now known as the Calgary Surge, and the local Fraser Valley Bandits, who rebranded to the Vancouver Bandits earlier this offseason. In the NBA, the Raptors are in action tonight against the top backcourt in the league in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell as they face off against the Cleveland Cavaliers at 4:30 at the Scotiabank Center. Raptors' key contributors Pascal Siakam and Scotty Barnes are currently listed as game-time decisions for tonight's match, while Cavaliers All-Star center Jarrett Allen will be out with a hip injury. In American football, Thanksgiving weekend in the NFL wraps up tonight with an AFC matchup. The 3-7 Pittsburgh Steelers are set to face off against the 4-6-1 Indianapolis Colts. Both teams are coming off a loss in Week 11. The game kicks off at 5:15 tonight. That's your sports update for 1 o'clock. My name is Evan Tate, and thank you for listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.